Welcome to Sumbits, where we decode the PowerSchool development experience. Sumbits is brought to you by MBA. Let's start the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sumbits. A little bit different this week. As you can see, it's just the three of us, no guests. We thought we'd take it back to kind of the origins. I'm not sure why Ryan's sipping it out of a coffee mug, but I am still drinking.
That's what I'm
still with the whiskey. Today's whiskey of choice is Russell's Reserve 10-year. Beautiful bourbon. Delicious stuff. I assume, Ryan, you have a different cocktail in hand.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just going with a gut rot whiskey with a little bit of a splash of Coke in it right now. I'm not feeling fancy today. I'm just going with what I like. That's what I like.
Eric, what are you drinking today?
So I am feeling fancy today, and I decided to mix it up because I've been too boring. So I stopped by a liquor store today, and I found me this can.
Wait, sorry. Is it from China?
I don't know.
I'm going because it kind of looks like one of those Chinese dragons.
Like the dragon things?
Yeah.
No, I believe this is Mexican. I don't know where it's brewed.
That I could see that then, yeah.
But it says here on the back, it's from the Brewing Project. That's Projekt Project. And the beer is called Mejor Vida. You like that? I did the accent well.
Yeah, you got the accent and everything.
Mejor Vida.
It says Mexican lager with orange blossom honey.
Cool.
Very interesting. Sounds like something I would drink.
Yep. Well,
not something you would drink, or sounds like
definitely something I would drink.
I will always try any beer, but you typically lose me when you include orange in beer. But I would still try it.
Yeah,
you know what? The orange is subtle. It's tasty.
If you can taste the orange, it's probably too much for me.
No, it's very, very subtle.
That's good.
But I gotta also call out the fact that I'm proud of my attire today, by the way, because we are doing our summer episode today.
Yep.
So I got my Hawaiian shirt on. For those of you that are listening and not watching, this should be your inspiration to actually watch us, because I'm looking dapper today. I'm just saying. I've also got my shorts on. And
whoa, did you shave your legs?
Super sexy.
Did you shave your legs?
No, I didn't.
There's fur. It's almost like you're channeling your inner John Dunley.
That was just to make everyone pause and then look at the video now.
Yeah, right. Hey, guys, that's a great segue. Like Eric said, today is our episode that it's summertime. What do we do in PowerSchool when it's summer, right? You know, when you're working at a district, I know in my experience, a lot of people, even after 15 years in a district, people still go, so you just don't do anything in the summer, right? And that can't be further from the truth, right? We all know how busy summers can be. What's that? Cat videos? Yeah, all day, every day.
That's what I've heard.
But you know, this is a good time for us to kind of talk about some things that we may urge you to do this summer that you may not already have on your to-do list. I know Ryan actually took notes this time and is bringing a bunch of stuff. So he's a little more prepared than I am, and more prepared than we normally are. But no time like the present to get right into it. What do you got for it, Ryan?
Well, I would say one thing we reference frequently. We've referenced it even in recent webinar series too. It's your page fragments and customizations and cleaning things up. This is your time to clean up your customizations. Because a lot of the times throughout the year, you will be coming and butting heads with old customizations that are updated to use page fragments versus ones that have customized core screens, or customizing page fragments that, not just an update, but a different plugin, again, that still is contradicting or conflicting with the core screen that's been customized. This is your time to do that because you don't have the same volume of users in your public portal or your teacher portal or your admin portal. You probably still have people in your admin portal, and we can switch to this on another topic shortly. But the public portal, I mean, I would recommend just closing it down at this time of the year. I mean, of course, it's going to be up to someone above your head that's going to tell you to do that. But I mean, I would say, hey, close it down so that you can do all the maintenance and tweaking you want on it and not risk sharing information that parents aren't supposed to see or that your district doesn't want to share and get you in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that phone call, right?
No.
Now, I'm guessing you were probably going to lead into this at some point, but, Brian, I don't know what customizations I have that aren't in a plugin or aren't part of a page fragment and part of core pages. How do I find out?
Well, the first thing I was going to again, you're right. I would say export everything. Honestly, export everything and just get an inventory. Because if you don't have an inventory, it's a good darn thing to do. For those
what's the easiest way to do that?
Well, you can go to, and forgive me if I don't have the path right here, but let's say system, page and data management, export custom web route. Does that sound about right, guys?
It's not exact, but I don't know the exact. You're on the right track.
Yeah. So that's definitely one way to do it. And for those who aren't familiar, basically any file that isn't along the syntax of file name dot something dot content footer dot txt is a core page that's been customized, and those are really the ones you want to focus on. Yeah. Basically anything that's .html, to a lesser extent .js, although I hope you don't have too many core modified JS files. I really do hope you don't.
Look at that face.
Yeah,
I put the core JS file customization version in all the plugins that I build.
Well, so, yeah.
Are you saying that's no, I'm kidding. That was facetious.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I misinterpreted. But actually, what the point that you're making there, though, what I'm saying could be misinterpreted, because of course, if you're making your own plugin, you make your own JS file, so it doesn't.
No, I'm just saying all of my plugins include a version of Common Scripts wildcard.
Oh, that would be funny. Yeah. So basically, if you're looking for core files that have been customized, this is your time to take anything that's in them that's customized and move them into page fragments, and then restore your core files.
Hey, okay. I just had a thought because we were talking. Sean, was it you? You brought up your what's part of a plugin versus what's actually customized for your district.
Yeah.
If we're during this summertime, and especially if you can do it after hours. I've never tried this, but I think step 1, go in, disable all of your plugins. Then go do the export. I want to say that export at this point from CPM is not going to include because the plugins have been disabled.
I'm going to say I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
the
sure
best
about
I can say.
I'm going to say I'm fairly confident that's going to work. If you want to know what's customized but not by a plugin,
I'm going to tell our viewers to throw that in the comments below.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Respond and let me know that I was right
now.
Yeah, you can always email us at sumbits@nba-link.com. Definitely email us. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
We're not always right?
We're not always wrong, though.
Well, 2 out of 3 of us are wrong most of the time.
Eric.
Not me. Anyway, so I mean, Eric, obviously you've never worked at a district, so summer is kind of a different topic for you, right? It's not necessarily a big switch, but you've also been with NBA for a number of years, and I'm sure you've seen, things that people are wanting to do in the summer, and I'm sure you have some thoughts of your own of what should be done over the summer and what should be held off on. What's with that phase?
And I've got one thing to add before you to throw in to answer it. I'm curious, as you're answering this, since you've never been in a district, what is your perception of end of year process? Considering, I mean, Sean and I definitely have our own perceptions of end of year process from a district level, and it'll always be that way. What is your perception of end of year process since you've never been in a district?
I hear it's stressful.
just a reset button and the term or the year ID goes up by one.
Well, yeah, you click a couple buttons and it's done. I don't know what everybody's always complaining about. No, I don't have a good perception of the end of year process, and that's something that I always stress to people that I talk to. You know, they'll ask me questions about PowerSchool proper. And my response is, look, my job for the last decade has been making PowerSchool do things that it doesn't do.
Yeah.
So when you want to know about what PowerSchool does do, then you want to talk to somebody else within my organization. But no, I have a question to pose to the two of you who have both been within a district. I know that the summertime isn't cat video time. I know it's crazy time.
It wasn't.
But does the summer provide you as the end user, when you were working for the district, an opportunity to do things that you might have not otherwise done? Because I have ideas myself about what I'd like to say. Yeah. This is what you should do with your summer, folks.
Yeah.
But they might be ignorant comments or ignorant suggestions based on the other stuff that these folks have to do with their summer. So my question is there some wiggle room in the summer? I want to try to take this and tackle this, or is it all really just, no, it's prescribed. I've got to do this, and this to get ready for my next, for the fall.
If I may answer that first, I know in my experience, in my earlier days of PowerSchool and wanting to fit in learning time into the summer, when it wasn't defined time for me to do that, it was very hard to come by. Because I'm not going to say it's necessarily prescribed for a normal summer, but normally if you have a plan, because as soon as the first day of summer rolls around in a district, you're on a time crunch. Right, you are on a time crunch to August 16th or whatever the first day of school is.
Yeah.
This is when everything has to be done, and if you don't have your summer planned out, it's really easy to not take advantage of all of that time, right? So for me, as my PowerSchool experience in my years went on, if there was something in particular, because there was usually a PowerSchool user group meeting in the or a PSUG in the summer. So I would attend those, but I would always build in time to take that knowledge, or, whether it's something with, page fragments or, and this is going to be a kind of a quick list, but contacts, I'm trying to think of other things over the years that, I really wanted to dedicate time to, instead of it being something that just filled in the time when you weren't doing the other things that needed to be done. Definitely define your time and make sure you fit it in, because if you don't, next thing you know, it's going to be, time to train the teachers and time to bring the teachers back and making sure schedules are complete and all that fun stuff. So that was kind of my experience. But Ryan.
So let me ask Ryan, actually.
Yeah.
You used a phrase a couple times there. I built in time. Does the average person out there that's working within a school district, do they get to build in that time? Or is that dictated? Is your time dictated to you? I mean, what do you think the average person that's listening to us right now is dealing with during the summer?
For anyone from my former district administration listening, I can say that I was and I'll say that, as a credit to them, I was very fortunate. My old supervisor, my boss, and the superintendents, I was very fortunate, and it worked out for them because I took advantage of it for the benefit of them. I was granted a lot of leeway in working with PowerSchool, managing PowerSchool, updating and enhancing PowerSchool. I knew, however, on the same side, on the same coin there, a lot of my counterparts in my province, sometimes with a similar sized school district, a lot of times, because we have a lot of school districts with various sizes, sometimes very small, they didn't have, the budget for a full-time PowerSchool person.
Yeah.
So sometimes the person running PowerSchool, sometimes the administrator of PowerSchool wasn't even somebody from an IT background at all. And therefore, pretty much anything involving customizations and development and just professional development within PowerSchool for their own skills was a luxury.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, carving out your own time, like Sean's saying, it is that. And I mean, basically prior to having children, in my evenings, I spent a lot of time. I enjoyed it, and I had that free time. I definitely don't have evening time anymore. But I mean, now it's because it's my full-time job. So, I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do. But in the summer, that was when I would find the additional time to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like you're like,
So
I mean,
one thing that I can kind of add on to that is it's always going to be the first year that you do that and kind of request that time to work on those things is going to be the hardest.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same conversations that you had the first time that you wanted to go to Michigan City or Las Vegas for a PowerSchool conference, right? They're all going to look at you like, really, is this going to be worth it?
Yeah.
What's the value? What is the district getting out of this? And then when you go to these conferences, right, and come back with the knowledge and the things that you can do to your own PowerSchool server to make that work better, then they see the value. It's going to be the same thing with the first time you go to your boss and say, hey, I know you're pulling 5 miles of cable this week. Can we just put that onto the student helpers and let me focus on this one aspect of PowerSchool that I want to really get dived in on. Once they see the other side of that and see that value, that's going to be easier every summer. It's also going to be easier for you to carve out that time because they are going to see that value, and you are too. I mean, you're going to be better at what you're doing because you're able to focus that time on it.
And on that, like in addition to that, I mean, you're going to have ideas that you want to realize within PowerSchool. There's no doubt you will, but it would be better for everybody involved in your situation to find out what their idea is, something that they're looking for.
Yeah.
So that you can go to this conference, you can go to like whatever's happening in the summer and then come back and figure that out. Yeah. Because that's going to be a lot more meaningful to the people, the stakeholders, let's say, when you could present them with that than the idea you had.
Right.
Well, once you can come back and prove the idea they had, then you can do whatever you want.
That little more,
so you know what? Figure out what it is they want. And you know what? It doesn't need to be as daunting as it sounds. Like they might want a super simple attendance report that might seem completely out of your realm of expertise right now, but it's probably a lot more easier. Given like if you don't know anything about it at all, it's probably a lot more easier than you think. And you're going to come back from this conference doing a relatively speaking, very simple report that's going to blow their minds.
Right.
And then you're going to be able to catapult yourself forward with.
Yep.
So, and I mean, experience is what I'm speaking from here. Like, I mean,
yes, same.
The first, my initial customizations were nothing. Like, I mean, they were a monumental and impressive to everybody involved, but in the grand scheme of things, they were nothing. But they were enough to show that I was learning and applying my knowledge, and that I was going to build from that, and I was going to learn from that, and then it ended up working out really well for everybody involved. Like I'm saying, right. But back to the original question of how I look at the summer, what I'm doing. One thing that I actually thought was kind of interesting, Eric, that you said right off the bat was how does the end user see the summer? And it's kind of funny because I never thought of it like that. I mean, as the PowerSchool admin in my district, I don't know, you, Sean, too, probably. Like, I mean, I never saw myself as the end user, but
Right.
you wouldn't see yourself as the end user at that point. But of course, to you, Eric, we would be the end user at that
Yeah.
point. And now anybody I'm talking to who's at a district admin would be the end user as well. So that's an interesting, perception there.
Yeah.
I really like that. But then the other thing, Sean, you mentioned was the deadlines. Like, and I mean, I had a few years under my belt doing that. And I mean, I had my own deadlines, like you're saying, from July, whatever started. But I got really handy at setting up workshops. And my boss was good with letting me kind of dictate that. And I would get secretaries from each of my various schools. So like, let's take scheduling in, for instance. My high schools, I would go and work with the principals of we only had 3 high schools, but I would work with the 3 high schools, and I'd go and spend a day or two at their various schools working on Power Scheduler and getting them set up. And then for the middle schools, because their schedules allowed us to do, I forget the right terminology, but basically a copy and paste of the former school year and changing some things around. It worked to allow me to just gather all of the middle school secretaries into a computer lab at one of the schools one day. And I would walk them through spreadsheets and yada, yada, and changing values. And then we'd all update it. Yeah. And then I'd have them all have a deadline that they'd get to me something by, let's say, June 30th. And that would be my time to do something with that data. And then I would have them make sure that something was done by July 31st. And then typically speaking, July 31st is when I would do the end of year process. But in between then, like I'd massage, I'd do whatever I needed to do with that data. I'd clean it up, I'd fix it up, I'd do whatever I would, and more things we'll talk about as we continue this conversation. But I'd have them do a lot of data cleaning, but in between then is when I would do other things. But yeah, like the deadlines for sure. Like as far as the must do's and the management and organization. Yeah.
One thing that I do kind of want to talk about and at least bring up, because you basically are referencing training, right? And it sounds like you were lucky enough to have a district to where you had access to your staff during the summer months.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably
not really, but I had a receptive staff. As far as union and contracts go, they weren't officially there, but I had good people. I definitely had good folks. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are listening and watching that say, man, that sounds great. But, 3 days after graduation, after their contract's over, that we're not going to see them until that second week of August. One thing that I can say on top of that is summer's also a great time to get training materials put together. Mm-hmm. Whether it's handouts, whether it's, quick reference guides, whether it's, Ryan, you were talking about doing some like walkthroughs on how to do certain things. There's a lot of tools out there. Like I want to say Screencast-O-Matic is a good one. I think my previous boss Mark, I think you use that quite a bit. But it's a great way to kind of show on screen and record and have those available to your staff when they do come back.
Can I just, wow. I mean, I don't know if it's everybody's opinion, but for me, I think recorded video training is priceless.
Yeah.
Because I can put together documentation with screenshots and verbiage, and that's all well and good. But for me personally, if I want to learn how to do something, if I can watch a 5-minute video versus spend 20 minutes reading through your documentation, the return on investment there is epic. And that's what I actually do internally oftentimes when I create new features for the software that I develop. How does this new feature work? Well, I could, spend 20 minutes writing an email and finding screenshots and embedding all that stuff. Or I could just turn on my screencast and say, hey, everybody, this is just internal. This is casual conversation. Here's what I done did. Here you go. shout back if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I think that I like a in-person touch, which I agree with
sure.
that there. But I think it's still almost there's a lot of in the eye of the beholder to that too. And I mean, not saying you don't put together. I mean, you do fine, like putting together good visual documentation with like arrows pointing here and there, whatnot.
Red circles.
But I mean, but this is more of personally. I would rather use that because I can just scroll through my screen, and I mean, this is just this is a personal preference. Right? I imagine you enjoy or you learn better from that video. You receive better from that video if someone else is presenting it to you as well, which is why you probably are more prone to wanting to make that video. Whereas for me, I'd rather have the documentation on my screen with the arrows pointing, as long as it's really well put together, of course. But that's because I would rather have that as my visual cues. But the point is, either way, I want visual cues. I don't want just text. I do want pictures with arrows pointing to what I'm supposed to be looking at. So, I mean, it's kind of like the best of both worlds almost when you're going to compare a straight up documentation that's just all written word versus a video. Now you're taking the shots from the video and putting them in with the written word and pointing them to what you're supposed to be looking at.
Hey, very quick, a little Sumbits tip for you. If you're on a PC, very easy way to take a screenshot is if you hold down the Windows button, Shift S. Everybody at home, do it right now. It's actually just going to give you a little cursor. Everything's going to darken on your screen, and it'll give you a cursor. You can drag around what you want to clip, and as soon as you let go of your mouse, it'll go into your clipboard. Then you can paste it wherever you want.
So if they wanted to save picture of me in my Hawaiian shirt, you're saying?
That's right. Absolutely, they could do that.
Or my fancy
Who wouldn't?
Or
the Sumbits,
my Sumbits shirt,
which you can get at the Sumbits store.
Swag available. Link down below.
Or just like this mug, this fancy Sumbits mug.
You
can get my mug on your mug as well if you get one of our masks.
Yeah, right. Shameless plug. Shameless. So let's bring it back around.
What other things would you do in the summer, Sean? Let's put it back to that. What other things would you consider doing in the summer?
Me?
Yeah.
Personally, so one thing that I would always do is, obviously this is the time to take your data pumps and do whatever you need to do with them. Actually, before we started recording, I was telling Ryan, I personally use 3 different test servers. I had one where I took a data pump of the current school year before rollover, put it on a test server to use for state reporting. Sometimes there's state reports that you got to reference back data from the previous year, so that's a nice thing to do. And then another test server or 2 to play with. Obviously this podcast is kind of based around customization and different things that we can do within PowerSchool. There's no better place to do customizations and try customizations than on a test server.
With your district's data, because it's real data.
Exactly. And it's got the pages as you have it in your district.
And it's probably I shouldn't say it is 100% secure, because who knows how your network security is working.
Right.
But let's say there's a good chance it's very secure, so you don't have to worry about exposing any of your student data to the outside world. You just get to work with legit student data, which is so much more helpful than working with Apple Grove data. Not that Apple Grove data doesn't work, but it's not your data.
It's different.
So if I can throw something in there, one thing that I think is beneficial, and I've always had this luxury working on, I only work on development servers, but I always have a full read-write ODBC access to my database. And when I'm doing development, it's often very beneficial to bash data into that database, or wipe out data from that database. Okay, sure. I tested this scenario. Now I want to reset all the values in this table to null so I can test in a different scenario.
Yeah.
Instead of going to 50 different screens and checking a checkbox, I write a query and it's done. So yeah, getting that data pump and getting actual, your PS Navigator is what we typically connect with to our Oracle database. And I would never connect with anything other than PS Navigator to a production database.
Yes, let's
to your sandbox.
really enforce that. Let's really say that. Like, this is a production database. Don't use anything other than PS Navigator. Let's really set that into stone here.
But when you're on a sandbox, man, and you can connect with full read-write privileges.
If you can figure out how to, we will not endorse anyway how to. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. Disclaimer. It's
that's definitely something that I would do in the summer.
I do it, and I've been it. Like, I mean, it's helpful. It's absolutely helpful. But it's potentially catastrophic if that's why I'm saying. And
but it's not if you're on a sandbox. That's
on a sandbox. That's what I'm saying. But that's why I want to make sure
there's
people know.
No catastrophe.
That's why I want to make sure people know, though. Do not try anything other than PS Navigator. And I'm not even going to say an account name. We're going to leave it at that. But do not try anything other than PS Navigator in your production database. It's not worth the fallout if you accidentally do something.
So, I mean, that's definitely something I would do. Previous examples of things that I've done, like I said, contacts, migrating contacts, or not migrating, consolidating contacts, projects like that is what I would typically do.
Speaking of what Eric's just talking about, this is a perfect segue into things that you can manage during the summer: database integrity.
Yeah.
Because there is so many things, and I will use my favorite table to talk about this and reference this would be your stored grades table. In my district, and I mean, if anyone in my old district was listening, they know I was pretty anal about the security on the database, but that was because I didn't like having to deal with catastrophes. I didn't like having to fix things too much. I like things to work, and basically, I had a knack for figuring out who screwed something up. And I mean, some users did, some users didn't, but I didn't want to give. I hated having to deal with that too. I hated having to go to that person and say, hey, something happened. We need to figure out what happened. We need to figure out why you did this, and we need to figure out how to rectify it. Things like that.
And make sure it doesn't happen again.
What's that?
And make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, I would have the actual page. I don't know. Let's say it's edit_stored_grade.html. I had that locked down pretty tight so that only the school admins, like the principals, could actually touch that page. And that was because way too often early on in our adoption of PowerSchool, things were changed on that screen that broke because either they were like entered incorrectly. You got the credit types, the earned credit types that were like needed to be set a proper way. The grade would be set, but the percent wouldn't be, and et cetera, et cetera. Or credit types. Let's talk about graduation planner because you have to make sure that's right. I would have too many situations going on there. So, throughout the year, I made sure that only a limited few people could access that page and modify it. But then at the end of the year, I would basically run queries that would look for all known and accepted credit types, because you can enter whatever you want into those, technically speaking, and return me a list of results that would say, hey, yeah, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I knew 99.9% of the time what the typo was and how to fix it. But I would always put these lists together to submit to the users. And this is probably where people would get more upset, because I tell them I need this fixed. And it wasn't me trying to be a hard ass making them do the work, because obviously I can switch that over. I needed them to see what the issue was, because I mean, I'm not perfect either. I can miss those things, and then those values aren't going to show up on transcripts. They aren't going to show up on report cards and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because as you also know, when it comes to things like JavaScript and whatnot, case sensitivity is a real thing. And I mean, if literally the credit type was entered with uppercase and it's looking for lowercase, or vice versa, the value ain't going to show up. Yeah. So it's little things like that I would code in to figure out my database, to figure out the values, to figure out the integrity of it all. And then I'd go to my user and say, hey, fix this one up, because a lot, especially in my province, all of our report cards, everything to do with report cards was done through state reporting. It was all provincially managed, and like, it was case sensitive. I learned and I fixed it up. But yeah, there you go, Eric. What do you got?
I'm sorry, man. What you just said, you can see me chomping at the bit here for the last 5 minutes. But you're talking about credit types.
Yeah.
And, oh man, that struck a bone, because I wrote a customization that it's basically displaying a list of the distinct credit types that are available in a given district. And it's based on just basically look through your historical grades and find the different credit types. And they had English, and they had ENG all capital. They had ENG with initial capitals. They had ENG all lowercase. They had English all there were 10 different variations of the same credit type.
Yep.
And yeah, you just brought back nightmares for me.
Yeah. I mean, these are great examples, but I think that the whole gist of it is, auditing your data, right? Yeah. And just making sure everything is good. I'm sure everybody listening and everybody watching has had that one thing that has happened throughout a school year, that has happened, around report card time or around whatever it may be, that at that moment you were like, man, the things are maybe not as clean as they should be. Summer's a great time to really, pull out, like Eric was saying, pull out those distinct values and see why we have 5, 8, 10 different spellings for English for credit types. And that's just an example, but every district is going to be a little bit different. There could be something that you are thinking of, and summer's a great time to do that. Eric?
And I was super sorry. Go for it, Eric, because
I'm just like so excited right now. I want to loop this back to what we were talking about earlier. And admittedly, I'm ignorant, never having been that guy in a school district. But, the professional development that we were talking about early in the episode, I mean, I know sometimes it's just hard to get through the day, and you just need to figure out how to fix this problem now as quickly as possible. But if you can find a way to get your district or get yourself to invest in your own education, Ryan, you said earlier, I wrote these queries to identify these problems.
Yeah.
For the folks that don't know how to write a query, they're doing exports and VLOOKUPs, and they're recreating this work who knows how many times over and over again. Yeah. When you know how to write that query, you can write it once, you can run it today, you can run it tomorrow, you can run it next year. Plus, we're talking about this data integrity. How did this credit type value get put in there? Someone went to my edit stored grades page. You said you locked it down. That's all well and good, but you know what? If you know what you know now, you can put a page fragment on that edit stored grades page, and when someone hits that submit button, if the credit type is not in an approved list, it don't go to the database, man.
That's totally right.
I mean, the old adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Well, and two things you made me think of there was, one, for those who don't know how to write a query and everything, I was that person at one point. Like, absolutely, when we
I
first
might
got
argue you're still that guy.
but definitely I mean, I learned how to work with SQL. I learned how to write SQL because of PowerSchool. It was not something I had beforehand, and I mean, who knows what life had in store for me, but it was not something that I feel like would have come across me if it hadn't been for PowerSchool. So yeah, like I definitely figured that stuff out and learned how to work with that because of PowerSchool. And then as far as the prevention goes, I didn't come up with that solution, which you're totally right. And I would have by now come up with that valid solution of preventing anything other than the accepted credit types on the entry screen there. But on my bane was duplicate students. Oh my gosh. And for the most part, my staff was good at coming and going, I accidentally created a duplicate student early on so that I could go and delete them. I'd say, you just contact me. Please don't not do this and don't like be embarrassed. Just call me. I'll delete them and I'll get you the right student. We'll transfer them over if it's in another school.
Before
Yada,
they
yada.
get enrolled in the classes, before
Grades are signed in the grade
yep,
book,
exactly.
attendance is recorded. Yeah.
Attendance is the big one.
Oh, but what I ended up doing was throwing on some customizations on the register student screen, so that it brings you always, when you are potentially creating a duplicate student, it brings you to that screen that says, "Are you sure you want this good? Are you sure it's not one of these kids?"
Right.
But you know how, I mean, we all know, anyone listening to this, of course, you two guys know.
I just hit agree, right?
Exactly.
When they say you, yeah.
Just
like
agree.
a
You agree
EULA,
to these
right?
terms? Yes, continue.
Yes, accept, whatever, right? No one's going to read it.
This pops up every time.
I made it pop up 3 separate occasions throughout that page. Are you absolutely sure that this kid is not in this list?
And if you were the registrar that were enrolling students that was annoyed by that, please email us. I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, I would so hard make sure that they knew that this kid was potentially in that list. I made sure that there's nothing they could do but laser focus on this list of kids.
That's awesome. So one thing that I want to make sure I bring up on this episode before we get to the end here is, especially this summer, I mentioned earlier, there's always new things in PowerSchool that you want to take and tackle on in the summer. This year with the new fall release, the new experience will be mandatory.
Yes.
So make sure if you have any needed customizations on that old start page where you disabled it, to make sure that those are still working. This is the summer to make sure it's working, or some other type of replacement or some solution on the new experience if you're planning on coming on to that new fall release.
And not selling for us, just saying in general, if it's not on you, find someone out there who will do it for you. I mean, we will. I'm sure there's other options out there too, but it's something we could help you with. Sure. Not making it like we're the only option, because we don't like to make it like we're selling things during this podcast.
Absolutely not. But no, there's plenty of other ways to get help out there.
I'm sorry, Sean, go on.
No, I was just gonna say there's plenty of ways to get help out there. Maybe that's something that you want to throw out on the PSUG forums, or if you have a local state user group or something along those lines. Everybody should have at least one go-to person, right? Whether it's a forum or even PowerSource, ask questions, figure it out somewhere.
It's interesting because I was going to say, better yet, invest in the professional development to figure out how to do it yourself.
Yeah.
But Ryan and I were having a conversation earlier today, which I usually find rather dull. But this one was interesting, and some people have taken this approach, whether it be with MBA or some other organization. When you hire out to have customization done, we have some clients that say, just build it for me and deliver it. And we have other clients that have invested in themselves, but something is just a little bit beyond their reach and their repertoire, if you will.
Yeah.
But they decide, if it's going to take you 3 hours to build this, then I'm going to purchase 4 or 5 hours for you to walk me through the building of this. You know, it's a teach a man to fish approach.
Yep. Hi, Jeff, by the way.
Hi, Jeff. We love you, buddy.
Which honestly, and I've had a couple of my clients with that, like with FMBA. We find that fun. Like, I mean, we enjoy that, and like cracking eggs over trying to figure these things out. So, like, I mean, for anybody who is even apprehensive, like, I mean, the people who like this, they know they like this idea. For the people who are apprehensive about wasting time or not coming across, like being able to like get their ideas across or whatever, oh, I love that. Like, I mean, I love trying to, like, you know, decipher what you're going for and help you figure out and get us to that aha moment where you're all of a sudden like, oh, cool. Because, I mean, I enjoy that. So, yeah.
Anyway, not getting salesy. I just want to throw that.
Sorry. But I mean, speaking as professional development and everything like that. So the next thing I was going to say, if we've covered everything we've talked about so far with both of you, I got more stuff to talk about.
Well, let me just say, first of all, I don't think that things were getting salesy, right? Because at the end of the day, we're encouraging people to develop the skills to not need services.
For sure. Yeah.
Like the ones we provide. So I hope our bosses aren't listening right now.
Exactly. It's not like, I mean, we're encouraging you. Like, I mean, all three of us here running this podcast here, we've all had professional development at various levels, whether it's at PSU, PSUG, or at colleges or universities. We've all learned things along the way. And I mean, essentially, this is just another medium for you to learn and develop your skills from that we're suggesting. So I mean, yeah, definitely there's an MBA side to that, but there's definitely a lot of benefit to you, the user, that we want to polish your skill.
Well, and let's talk about the workflow for a moment. When you don't have the skills in-house to accomplish something, what's going to happen? Someone's going to communicate to you, Sean, as the PowerSchool administrator, this is what I need done. Mm-hmm. You're going to say, I don't have the skills to do this, but I know someone who does at this other company. You're going to call that other company. You're going to talk to a support specialist, a business analyst. You're going to communicate what someone else communicated to you, to that person, who's then going to ask a few questions and communicate that to a developer, who's going to say, well, but what about this? It's going to go back to that person. It's going to go back to you. And then you got to go back to the person that asked for it in the first place. Yep. You know, 3 months later, you've got a solution, and then your end user says, well, that's not exactly what I had envisioned. So now, Sean, you got to go back to the other person. I won't draw that out any longer, but you get my idea. If you spend the time investing in that professional development and you have those skills in-house, the turnaround time, you know, it pays dividends.
Yeah. There is one thing I think, I don't know, Sean, if you agree with me this or not, the distinction between the specific point you're saying, I don't know how to do this, but I know a guy who can. When you're in a district, you just go, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because there isn't just go to figure someone else who can. It's different. It's different money coming from the top end, right?
Thing,
like that.
And every district's different with that too. Yeah. You know, like, you know, some districts are very open to, let's pay some money and get this done right now, or you know, let's not spend that money. We're paying you to do a job. You figure it out.
Exactly.
Okay, so you made a good point there. Despite what I just said, I also want to say, if you realize that a project scope is really out of your wheelhouse, absolutely, you go to the guy if you want to make sure that it's done right. Then you go to PowerSchool Customization Solutions. You go to MBA. You go to some other vendor that can make it happen and do it the right way the first time. Mm-hmm. But when the scope isn't quite that large, and it's, you know, I just developing those skills internally versus paying
For sure.
whatever
And,
is being charged for customization time
to
now.
really bring it back full circle, one of the first things that I said is designating that time for myself in the summer to do something. One thing that I always express to my users, whether it's secretaries, principals, assistant principals, whatever, nurses, didn't matter who it was, I always said, if it always seemed like PowerSchool should be able to do this, but it's not currently doing it, let me know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just say, no, that's not going to be a thing. And sometimes I would be like, okay, well, I can take a look at that. And then obviously first thing is going to PowerSource Exchange and, the data solutions and see if it's already been made, because I'm not going to recreate it if somebody else has already done it.
Absolutely.
But, if I found one of those things that I went, okay, I kind of understand the logic on how to do that, that's going to be a great project for me to devote time to in the summer. And come out on the other side with something to prove that I've done something, and have that customization built.
Can I throw out a shout out to one of our previous guests,
For
the
sure.
Lazy Man,
Yeah.
John Levy, and to PSUG.io, because you said, go to PowerSource Exchange, go to Power Data Solutions, and go to the MBA website and see what free plugins we have available. But also, I've seen a lot of people post on PSUG.io and just say, hey, I have this problem I need to solve.
Yeah.
Anybody have any suggestions? I mean, God, one of the wonderful things about PowerSchool is the PowerSchool community.
Yes, so much, and especially during the summer, because that's when everything's shut down, and that's when like, frankly, I mean, everyone on the PSI community is awesome. Like, let me say that. But there's definitely a lull in the summer because a lot of people who are not, let's say, 12-month employees, because you have those that are not 12-month employees, they're taking a break. And typically those people that aren't 12-month employees aren't the technical employees. And again, not discriminating against one or the other, but now in the summer you've got just the technically apt, like the super, let's say the super nerdy employees, like I was. Yes, and that's when you get the really intricate stuff. And I mean, so like you're saying, your shout out to John Dunleavy. My shout out is, like, frankly, Schmason Schmedwell. I mean, back when he was running PDF Power Data Solutions, back when that was still his baby, and I knew nothing. I learned so much through his code and working on his stuff. Like, I mean, especially at his time when PowerSchool didn't have what's it called, page fragments, and it didn't have database extensions, and, like, all the things that were worked around before PowerSchool offered better options to customize were, like, ingenious, frankly. And I mean, you had to, I mean, really, like, I mean, now I've said this before to other people. I don't know if I said it on this podcast. Now we're in the golden age of PowerSchool customizations, because we have the ability to extend the database. We have the ability to use actual web standards when we're customizing. The custom page management, whether you're using WebRoot or custom page management itself, is a lot more intuitive. 10 years ago, no, not so much. 10 years ago, it was like a patchwork at best, using these virtual tables, cramming as much as you could into the gen and pref tables, working around as much PS HTML as you could.
So I can't wait to come back to this episode in about 5 years.
Right.
We thought that was the golden age. This is the golden age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Time.
Ryan's going to be saying those were actually the dark ages back when I said this.
But it's true. And I mean, it's that's a good point. Like, because that's how things have, I mean, definitely in the past 10 years. Yeah. Since I've been working in PowerSchool, how much things have changed. And I mean, absolutely, it can only go up, I would hope. Absolutely. Let's be positive and say I would hope. I mean, it has always gone up. It always has improved. And
there's no reason not to expect that in the future.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. I mean, yeah. I learned how to try to. I've said this too. I feel like I think we said this in our either the worst like one of our first 2 episodes. I feel like I got lucky in that the way PowerSchool was, the way it existed back when I started doing customizations, really benefited me as a know-nothing user, as a know-nothing developer. Because it allowed me to work within this framework, within this confine, without knowing a lot, but knowing enough, as we've always said, to be dangerous. But it has graduated to more stable web standards and actual practices that, to be efficient, you had to grow with and build with, but it allowed me that leeway rather than just saying, hey, you got to know everything to start, and not saying to anyone else that you got to know everything, but still.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point you bring up, because I feel like we've all been around PowerSchool long enough that we remember what it was like to play Oregon Trail, right? And that allows us now to appreciate Beat Saber in VR. For anybody who's a VR fan. But yeah, for those that are maybe brand new to PowerSchool, it's totally easy to recognize the shortcomings, and not to claim that they're not there, but it has come a long way. It really has. It is such a better experience customizing PowerSchool today than it was in 2009 when I started.
Yes.
For sure. All right, guys. I think that's a pretty good list of things to look at doing in the summer. If anybody has any other ideas, by all means, email us. We can add some comments down below. Maybe we can do another episode on this if there was a lot that we missed. But let us know. Sumbits at mba-link.com, or you can just comment down below. Guys, it was nice to have an episode just with the 3 of us. We still love our guests. We'll come back with guests, I do believe, in 2 weeks.
I want to say that I haven't liked all of our guests. Not to name any names, Madam Schmarson.
We were trying to go without saying. You did it. You ruined it.
I thought you were going to ruin it earlier, Ryan, but apparently we'll let Eric ruin it. All right, guys. Until next time. Ryan, you want to do your thing?
I don't have it next time, but next time we'll see you.
With somebody talking about some things. Usually
somebody talking about some bits.
Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Later.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Enjoy more episodes and learn more at mba-link.com.